Well, good morning, everyone, and I'm excited to have you here on our Integrative Medicine blog with Lanisha Lindsay today, and I'm Haley Vilhauer. And today we're going to be talking about integrative mental health and what does that mean, and learning a little bit more about you, Lanisha, which I'm very excited about because I've had the pleasure of working with you at Vancouver Wellness Studio for the last couple of years now, and in addition, being one of your clients too. I think I'm allowed to say that, am I not?
Yeah, you get
And
to decide
so
that.
yeah, it's been wonderful to get to know you not only on a professional level, but in practice as well, to see your great works and to experience them. So I'm excited to really learn more about you because there's a lot of questions I have, and I'm sure some of our viewers would love to hear these questions as well. But before we get started, I was hoping that you would just do a little introduction and give us just maybe an overview of your background and your titles even, so that we know what to call you.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Lanisha Lindsay. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a certified EMDR therapist and an EMDR consultant. And I also am working on my certification for an integrative mental health provider. I've been in the field for about 20 years, primarily originally working in schools and community mental health agencies. And the last 10 years I've been in private practice. I work with adults with trauma, so my practice is a trauma-focused practice.
Now, that trauma focus, is that something that you started out kind of knowing that you wanted to have as the focal point of your practice, or is that just evolved over time?
That's definitely evolved over time. I think 20 years ago when I started in the field, we didn't know as much about trauma as we do now. And so early on, working with kiddos and teenagers and families and all of the different things emotionally that people were experiencing, I don't think we really realized the effects of trauma and stress on the brain and the body in the way that we do now. And so over time, I've just learned that the best way of getting to a lot of people's um, challenges with emotional health or mental health is really getting to the root cause, which is oftentimes a trauma-based origin.
Hmm, fascinating. Now, on that note of the trauma and the stress that you spoke of, that's just become part of the work that you do, tell us more about EMDR specifically, because I know before I started working at the wellness studio and learned about Lamisha and your practice, I really didn't have a clue about EMDR, and I felt like I was entering into a whole new world of mental health, which was so exciting to learn about. So can you give us a little background on like what is EMDR and how is it used in your counseling practice?
Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's just kind of a long term for working with the brain and the body and working with how experiences, memories and experiences are stored in our brains and in our body. And what EMDR does is it just helps to process those stored memories so that people are no longer feeling distress or kind of living in the past. And so EMDR helps to metabolize and reprocess experiences now that they weren't really able to reprocess at the time because they were overwhelmed or didn't have the help or support they needed. And so it's just a powerful psychotherapy that moves people out of a fight, flight, freeze response, and it provides stabilization and an equilibrium to their nervous system.
So you can actually change the nervous system and its expression over time.
Yeah, and actually very, very quickly with EMDR, some conditions that people come in with, we can treat quicker than others. So if clients come in with pretty stable childhoods, but they have had like single incident traumas, being a victim of a crime or a car accident or a natural disaster, those people can be helped rather quickly through a course of treatment. If people come in with childhood traumas, abuse, neglect, sexual abuse of some sort, or attachment traumas with their caregivers or parents, those usually have a little bit longer time periods that we need to work with clients to help them to heal from those experiences.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. The further back the trauma, the longer it might take to do the work. So there's benefit, it sounds like, in um, seeing an EMDR therapist following a trauma or a traumatic incident rather soon, as opposed to waiting.
Yeah, I think that's really important. A lot of times people don't realize the impact of what they've gone through. Initially, maybe they don't feel the full effects of it. And then after, several weeks to a month, it starts to set in and people are having a difficult time sleeping. Those are really kind of key areas to look for, or they might be having things like flashbacks or nightmares, or they may not be able to eat, or just really stay focused on at work, and their concentration may be impacted. And so those are really good indicators that the nervous system has not rebalanced and has not come back down to a neutral state. um, and so coming in and getting help as soon as possible is really important.
Oh, that's great information. Thank you. You mentioned like a course of treatment. So let's talk on the subject of, say, childhood trauma. And I'll use myself as an example, but I'm 40. If I was to come in 40 years after this, what sort of treatment might you suggest, as far as how many times a week or a month would I see you? And could I expect to see you for a dozen visits or 50? I mean, how do you encourage someone like myself that might want to start EMDR, which I do? I've never done it myself. I've done your neurofeedback, which we'll talk about at a future time. But tell me more about a course of treatments for something like the counseling and the EMDR.
Yeah, so when clients come in, I do an intake and get some history, get some information on what they're experiencing, and also develop a relationship with them. It's really important for clients to feel safe and know that they can share whatever they need to share in a counseling session. And then we just kind of learn about what you're currently struggling with. And then there's some techniques where we can do some body sensation float backs. And we really just use the body to get to the early origins of where some of the distress started for them. And
Mm,
then we look for the memories that come up with some of those float backs. And we use those earlier memories to target with EMDR.
wow. Okay. So, in other words, someone needs to probably plan to see you for some time to do the work that might be necessary to really get to some of these root causes.
Yeah, weekly sessions are really recommended at the beginning, and just we kind of move at clients' paces,
Mm,
whatever feels comfortable for them. And so each person is different, and if there are some other things that we need to add to help clients be able to tolerate more of the work, that's where I think integrative medicine can come in really well. So it's not just trauma focused work, but also looking at ways to support that work. So whether it's helping them, kind of develop a sleep hygiene or a stress management plan during the day, or looking at how to kind of honor their bodies and what their bodies need. But just really helping clients to be able to have a plan to do the processing for trauma work, as well as maintain um, a sense of wellness as they go.
wow. Well, I love how it ties in so much, and the integration really is not lost on me as far as your role, not only at Vancouver Wellness Studio, but just in someone's journey forward to better health. I have so many more questions, so I feel like we're going to have to come back to this at a future time because you just do so much, and your work has so much depth to it that there's a lot to learn. And a lot of us, I think, have experienced some really powerful benefits from your work. I know that you have a fairly full schedule. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, Lanisha, and learn more about your counseling work or your EMDR or even the neurofeedback that I've just touched on and haven't really given you a chance to explain yet, but how would they go about doing that? What's the best way to contact with you?
Sure. They can go to my website at vancouveremdrtherapy.com. They can also go to the Vancouver Wellness Studio website, vancouverwellnessstudio.com. And my email is linked to both of those websites, so they can send me an email or reach out, and I'd be glad to talk to them.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I appreciate your time today, Lamisha, and we'll definitely dive deeper on all of these subjects of integrative medicine because I want to hear more about your next steps that you're pursuing currently as well. But I appreciate your time today, and we'll look forward to chatting again very soon.